Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. There's a lot going on. It's been a very eventful week, and so we have a lot to cover. I was a little ambivalent about doing a full call today because our phone is literally blowing off the hook. Emails are coming in, so a lot of people think, based on what's happened this week, that the reinstitution of the dinar is imminent. I certainly can't dispute that. So we want to go ahead and get started and talk about the situation in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we think it's necessary to share with you the information we believe to be relevant. And of course, the most important piece of information would be a window for the potential reset of the dinar and hopefully some of these other currencies shortly thereafter. We believe, or rather I believe, that the process, and I'll explain what I mean by process, of the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar could happen at any time. And I want to discuss with you the reasons why. In my opinion, after the dust is finally settled in Iraq this week, it looks as though the moderate faction of the coalition framework is fully in charge of establishing a new government. And given the demographics of Iraq, meaning its vast majority Shia, this was always the most realistic outcome. So after a year of national unrest, it looks like Iraq is finally going to be seating a new government. Now, last Thursday, the new president of the republic, Abdul Latif Rashid, a moderate Shia, has named Mohammed Shia al-Sudani as a prime minister designate, another moderate Shia. Now, pursuant to the Constitution, he now has 30 days to form a new government. Now, al-Sudani is scheduled to present himself to the parliament this week. He has already nominated a little over 24 cabinet ministers. The coalition framework will also discuss cabinet-sharing nominations. The Sadrists will not be part of those discussions, and they will not be attending. So, with the imminent formation of the new government, there are only two issues that remain. One would be the full implementation of the white paper reforms, and the second is completing the currency reforms. Now, with regard to the currency reform, which is what's of most interest to us, we know that the IMF is extremely anxious for the reinstatement of the dinar in country. They want to repeg the dinar, or rather depeg the dinar from the U.S. dollar and then repeg it to the IMF basket of currencies. We also know that pursuant to the multiple trade and bank agreements that Kazemi negotiated with a number of countries, not only in the Middle East but in Europe as well, means that those are impractical agreements without a functional international currency. Now, it is true that Iraq, as we speak, has nearly 100 trillion in reserve currency. But given the fact that it's nearly 70 trillion to run the country over a year, factor into that the cost of the infrastructure projects and the international contracts, even 100 trillion U.S. reserve currency is not going to be enough for them to proceed. So it makes more sense for a substantial amount of that to be of that reserve currency to be used to stabilize the dinar as a revalued currency. We also know that the quantum financial system has extrapolated based on Basel III compliance a hypothetical value for the dinar and some of the other currencies in the program rate. They have the dinar, I believe it's at $4.85. Those of you that have been kind enough to listen to us for some time, and we've been doing these calls for a number of years, we have used $5 as a hypothetical valuation for the dinar based on our estimates of Basel III compliance. And sure enough, Quantum Financial System is extrapolated using Basel III compliance and has come up with a number close to $5. We also know that the Parliamentary Financial Commission has announced their intention to change the exchange rate against the dollar. Now, when I say, or what I have said earlier in the call about the reinstitution could happen at any time, and I'm referring to what I believe may well happen, which is a float, a cautious approach. And how would this work? Well, remember, they went from 1190 to 1450, largely to finish the collection. They call it the deletion of the zeros, but I always refer to it as the collection. They're collecting the 3-0 provisional currency. So the current 1450, in my opinion, will now go back to 1190. Once they go back to 1190, then I think the formal education system for the eventual reinstitution of the currency will begin for the citizens. Once that's occurred, then they're going to reinstitute. Now, they may come out initially at a reinstituted rate of slightly under $1, but in my opinion, they would move at least to $1, if not a slight premium over $1, somewhere around $1.15. By doing that, by making the dinar in country worth equal to or slightly higher at a premium over the U.S. dollar, that would further facilitate the collection of the U.S. dollars, which would be part of the CPI currency reserve, allowing the citizens to utilize in country the dinar. Once that occurs, I think rather quickly we will see a revaluation globally of the dinar. I can't imagine it coming out at less than $3. About $3.25 to $3.40 is probably where it was when it went into a program rate. But again, based on the extrapolation for Basel III compliance, we're looking at a number that could easily be north of $4, approaching $5. So in summary, I'm looking for the float literally at any time. And with the seating of the government, there's only one possible X factor here. And, of course, we've had to deal with this, and that is Maliki. Now, Maliki, of course, is part of the coalition framework, although he's one of the more radical pro-Iranian Shia. He has been nominated to the position of one of the 3 vice presidents. Now, no one really wants the guy around. He's a bad penny that keeps turning up. However, naming him as a vice president could actually be a good thing, because by naming him as a vice president, he has virtually no real power to do some of the things I'm afraid he'd want to do as a corrupt pro-Iranian official. But by naming him as a VP, he will now enjoy immunity from some of the prosecutions that are going to be coming, so long as he holds that seat. So at least for the time being, he'll probably behave himself, meaning that we will have an easier glide path to the reinstitution of the dinar. So we've had an eventful week. This is all very, very good news. And hopefully at any time we can expect to see the dinar move from 1450 to 1190. If we move to 1190, I think the process has begun for the over a very short period of time, and I'm talking maybe even as short as 30 days, the reinstitution of the dinar, its utilization in country, and then the revaluation at a rate north of $3 and possibly approaching $5. So this is all very good news. Now, Trusts Unlimited, for over a decade now, has put a program together to assist dinarians. We knew that anywhere from the estimated 7 to 10 or 11 million Americans that are dinarians, mostly hardworking middle-class individuals who, for the very first time, are going to be dealing with a very large sum of wealth. And so in order to help them, we've put a turnkey program in place. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of family asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Phase 2, post-RV, involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and some of these other currencies. So let's talk a little bit about Phase 1, which is the establishment of your package of family asset protection trusts. Very simply, we decided to create this package of trusts because it is our belief that it's the best bulletproof asset protection available domestically. And I want to touch on some of the other entities that can be established by way of comparison to explain what I mean. For example, individuals can establish LLCs or sub-S corporations, and they can provide some level of asset protection, primarily by dividing business assets from personal assets. The problem here is that the possession of these currencies is a personal asset. In addition, courts have ruled that LLCs or sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by one person or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So they're not going to be appropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established revocable trusts, sometimes referred to as living or loving trusts. These trusts have been designed, and their statutory trusts have been designed primarily to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate, and if properly structured, can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate the federal estate tax. But the revocable trust or living or loving trust can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. In addition, the LLC, sub-S corporation, and revocable trust, because they're statutory entities, will require registration and can provide no privacy. Now, as we move up the ladder, individuals can establish a single irrevocable trust. It does provide the most privacy and asset protection relative to the previous entities I just mentioned. But there is an inherent flaw with an individual trust, and it's this. If any asset within that trust gets involved in civil litigation or any kind of an investigation, that would necessarily bring all of your other assets and net worth into that investigation as well, because they're all housed in that one single entity. The solution is to create a family of trusts, and I'll explain to you how this can protect you above and beyond all of the other entities that I mentioned. But before I get into that, I want to explain for those of you that do have dinar and other currencies why it's important to establish the trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies, and you are running out of time. So if you are serious about not only acquiring this wealth, but protecting your privacy, protecting yourself from civil litigation, and protecting yourself from other investigations as well, inclusive of the IRS. And by the way, we're looking at 87,000 new IRS agents, which we are told are there to make sure that the billionaires pay their fair share. Well, at present, there are 752 billionaires in the United States. So I'm quite sure they don't need 87,000 new agents, giving them nearly 120,000 agents in total. I'm sure they don't need 120,000 agents to consider audits of 752 people. So let's talk about why you need to establish this package of family asset protection trust pre-RV. First, as I've mentioned before, it's going to provide you with privacy and anonymity, because the assets within this trust are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, and of course, by the way, that privacy and anonymity will hold true even if you don't have currencies. If you're a person of any means, the best thing you can do in a surveillance state that's being created right before our eyes is to utilize your Fourth Amendment right to protect your wealth and your holdings through the privacy afforded you through this trust. Now, second, by establishing this trust, you're going to avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computer is most likely going to spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Now, such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along at the time that these currencies have revalued, and an IRS audit is the last thing you want to be involved in at that point in time. And third, the cost of our Family Asset Protection Trust package will be less than the cost of a 6-year audit. So on the other hand, if you have your trust in force and you have assigned your currencies to that trust, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for two reasons. First, we know that there's only about a 15% chance of an IRS audit. If the taxable event of this revaluation were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust product such as this, the IRS prefers easy marks, and individuals that have sophisticated trusts is very time-consuming, and so they'll probably move on. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. Third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends. Now, if you have no problem giving individuals the currency to exchange for themselves or giving them the USD after you've negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through the specially designed gift subtrust that's part of our package. And because you're gifting through this subtrust, you will have complete control of the post-RV proceeds, meaning that you can manage and invest this money and distribute it to these individuals you deem appropriate. But that holds true whether you have currencies or not. If you have any amount of wealth and you wish to assist friends and family members, you can do so by utilizing this trust, giving them, in essence, a life estate. They would have access and use of the assets so long as that's your wish, but it still remains under your control within the trust. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess upon that estate in order for it to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only wholly unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number two. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our Family Asset Protection Trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million. But this time, protected in our Asset Protection Trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this Family Asset Protection Trust package is for two very important asset protection benefits, one pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You assign those currencies to our trust package. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth. And a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could sue you for would be the value of the property at the time you transferred it out of title to our trust, $5,000, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This protection protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy referred to as segregation of assets, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar, $5,000, transfer the currencies to the trust. They subsequently value for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate, segregated subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, how does this protect you from future bad acts after you've acquired this wealth? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing directly whatsoever to do with the accident in question. So your package of trusts work very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your family asset protection trust package prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. And all of these benefits hold true whether you have currencies or not. If you're a person of any financial means at all, a package such as this is the only way to guarantee your privacy and the protection of your wealth. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available after the revaluation of the dinar. Now, when the dinar reinstitutes in country, our weekly marketing calls for this trust package will stop, and we will be spending our time talking about the exchange and the management and funding of your trusts. In addition, once the reinstitution of the dinar happens and the dinar is once again a functional currency, then Trusts Unlimited will be in a position to go to the banks that we believe will be involved in the exchange and try to negotiate reduced transaction fees and the highest street rate available. In addition, Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar, hopefully to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the dinar globally. Now, present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages. We will also have our tax specialists there as well. With the acquisition of this wealth, you're going to want to take advantage of some of the more sophisticated tax strategies to legally reduce your tax exposure. We will also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets to reduce risk as quickly as possible. There are a number of things you need to consider. First, we know that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. And we want to assist you with the baseline information that you're going to need to avoid that calamity. The simple rule of thumb is the more wealth you possess, the less risk you need to take. Second, we know that the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity III-backed, Basel III compliant currencies will create volatility in the financial markets and inflation for the fiat currencies, and so you want to move out of currencies and into tangible assets. We can assist you with that as well. So if for any reason we are unable to sponsor the seminar in Florida, and the only reason that could be a problem is they're giving us some jazz about limitations with regard to COVID, masking, social distancing. If that should pose a problem in Disney, then we will be doing the seminar live by DVD and then provide DVDs in office, and we will have all of these specialists here to assist you. Now, remember, we're providing the baseline information with regard to management, funding of the trust package, tax information and investment information, but you're certainly free to work with whomever you wish. Again, we just want to provide baseline information to assist you. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like bank accounts, investment accounts, post-RV, one gift subtrust, which is an optional trust and which can be converted to a standard subtrust at any time, and 8 additional standard subtrusts that are to hold financial assets like homes, cars, physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. In addition, we can add sub-trust post-RV if they become necessary because you have a substantial amount of physical assets that you want to protect. This trust has a one-time cost, $3,000. We have utilized this trust in the past for our more affluent clients. It had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Dinarians, we knew that that price tag was going to be unaffordable for too many. So by simplifying the package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There are a number of ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500. That's not possible. We even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our initial costs just to produce and deliver your trust to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. So anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so with a deferred payment arrangement. We also do accept credit cards. So if you pay us up front with a credit card, not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would actually be substantially less than the $100 you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you once again get your affairs in order and your trust enforced for all of the reasons that we've discussed. Now, we will be going to the Q&A in just a moment, but before we do, and for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you should at the very least contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. This trust product was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a specialist in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning for 40 years. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for going on 40 years myself. I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 80 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, under our system of civil litigation, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And unfortunately, it's at precisely those times in life that you need the asset protection that can be provided with a package such as ours. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death, and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Under our system, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And so the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of family asset protection trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you anticipate a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. I'm going to give you our contact information when I go to the Q&A here, and then hopefully we can take some questions. So let's go to the Q&A. Before we take any Q&A questions, I want to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. You can contact us. We'll be happy to send you our initial no-obligation package. It's very informative. It does contain everything you need if you decide to proceed with the establishment of your family asset protection trust package, but that's entirely your decision. You can review the package. It has a lot of information about us, about trusts, about their valuation. You can contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. One other thing I want to mention, I have mentioned on previous calls about our concern about the transition to a central bank digital currency and the fact that it's being utilized basically to control your wealth. We want to avoid that at all costs. I strongly suggest, in addition to contacting us to get our initial package, you Google the Hamilton Project. That's the Hamilton Project. See what they have in store for us, and you'll understand why this trust is indispensable to being able to operate outside the Federal Reserve System and circumvent the digital currency that they're planning to foist upon us. So let's go ahead and go to some of our calls. Our first caller here is, let's see, that's area code 801. That's 801. Go ahead.
Hello, Jim. This is Harold. And the question of the day for now is when you have the gift subtrust and you have in mind a brother or a sister and maybe a couple of friends, does the gift subtrust need to be done before the RV event?
Yes, you need to create the gift subtrust, but it's not funded. The way it works is this way. When you receive our trust package, one of the things you get is the exchange protocol explaining the process of the exchange if you have a trust. Basically, you need to have your gift trust in force, but you do not take it to the bank with you. When you go to the bank, you take your master trust and all of the things that you would ordinarily take even if you didn't have a trust. You would negotiate the exchange, have all of the USD go into the trust bank account, master trust bank account that would be established that day at the point of exchange. You would then go back later, about a week or so later, with your gift subtrust, establish accounts for each of the individuals, beneficiaries named in that subtrust, and then transfer USD from the master bank account to the subtrust bank accounts you've established for the individuals that are the recipients of the gifts.
Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate your work in giving us the information of these calls, and we hope that the time is as soon as it seems.
I hope so. I've been involved in this over a decade, and I'm really ready to move on. But thanks for your call, Harold.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area 312.
Hey, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Les?
Yes, it is. What's going on, buddy?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, no, you tell me how Maliki, who's wearing an ankle bracelet on house arrest, gets to hold public office.
Because it's Iraq. But
my goodness.
By naming him as, in other words, the coalition framework has put some moderate Shia in there, but basically they said, we're going to play ball with you, but you got to throw us a bone. And in my opinion, they said, okay, we'll give Maliki. To me, this is what I believe. This is what I hope, and this is what I believe. It's ceremonial. They're giving him a VP. He's basically not going to be able to do much of anything, but it does grant him the immunity. He just wants his next breath. And so in my view, if that's what we have to do to move on, I say so be it. Because, the guy's bad news. The guy should suffer the consequences. But if, giving this guy a stay of execution, gets all of this work done, I'd say let's do it.
Okay. All right. Well, I can agree to that. Get this stuff finished and done. So
And then once we go to the bank and do our exchange, we never have to think about the guy again.
Exactly. So is it likely they are going to seat the government this week?
Well, once again, it's Iraq, but they're moving in the right direction. They've basically been told, they're gonna end up. The UN's going to move them back into Chapter 7 if they don't stop this tap dance. So I think that they've gone so far down the road. I just don't see how even Iraq can't screw this up, in my opinion.
Okay. Yesterday I got a text telling me that 25 officials were arrested some hours of the night while they were sleeping for stealing money in Iraq. Did you hear anything about that?
Yes, I have. I don't have any more details on that, but I did hear that. And that again may be part of the deal with the coalition framework. The moderates have enough clout to say, look, we need to clean this up. All right, this isn't about Iran. This is about Iraq, and we can't have these pilferers in here. So, as I said earlier, it's unrealistic to think that the Shia were not going to be involved because the country's the overwhelming majority of Iraqis are Shia. So the idea they were not going to have Shia governance didn't really make sense. And unfortunately, when they did get a Sunni in there, it was Saddam Hussein, who he was in such a good position to really move the country forward, but he was a hardcore, he was a hardcore Sunni, and now maybe Iraq learned their lesson and said, well, we can't have hardcore Shia either. So we've ended up with what the majority of Iraqis are, which is moderate Shia. And hopefully some of the corrupt pro-Iranian officials are going to suffer the consequences. And evidently Maliki had enough clout that they had to, as I said, give him a stay of execution. We'll see what happens. But where I am right now is, and I know it sounds selfish, the only thing I care about is I want to go to the bank and negotiate my exchange. I don't care anymore.
Well, you're not alone. You are not alone. Yeah. Say hi to the professor. Say hi to the professor and a shout out to Don.
Okay, will do. Take care.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Bye-bye. Well, that was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I want to thank all of you for listening to the call. Things we said are of interest, not just with regard to the dinar, but what's going on in this country as well. I strongly suggest you contact us to get our no-obligation initial informative package. It has everything you need if you wish to proceed, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package. Contact us if you have any questions, either by phone or email. We'll be happy to assist you, and, of course, there will be no consultation fee. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday, but the way things are popping, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we will try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.